Did you know everything you've heard about the saber-toothed tiger is wrong and the truth is way more disturbing? Most people know the saber-toothed tiger from popular media, thinking the saber-toothed tiger was just a modern-day tiger with bigger teeth and maybe a bit more attitude. The real-life saber-toothed tiger, also known as a Smilodon, was a lot more horrifying, more akin to a modern-day monster. Even calling a Smilodon a tiger doesn't do it justice, as it wasn't even remotely connected to modern tigers or lions. The Smilodon actually belonged to a completely extinct group of cats called Misconceptions. You have to imagine the Smilodon is less of a tiger and more of an entirely different experimental type of prehistoric predator. Scientists actually believe the lineage diverged from our modern cuddly cat friends, like this little guy here, about 20 million years ago. To give some perspective, calling a Smilodon related to cats would be like saying humans are the same as a very advanced kind of fish. Even the teeth of the Smilodon have a completely different, more horrifying use than you think. The terrifying part is we don't always know the depths of the Smilodon's strength. The animal behind the saber-toothed tiger myth first came up in the 1800s. In the 1830s, fossils were discovered in Brazilian caves, and then in 1842, the Danish naturalist Peter Wilhelm Lund officially named the genus Smilodon. If you manage to actually see one in real life, the first thing you would notice is how completely wrong and eerie it looks compared to any cartoon or even your own preconceived imagination. The Smilodon didn't have a sleek or agile body that was built for chasing prey. Instead, the Smilodon was stocky and heavy, with limbs that were extremely thick and powerful, more akin to a bear than something quick like the cheetah. The Smilodon evolved for one single reason: to grab onto any prey at once, hold it down, and overpower it with its pure strength to get its next meal. Its front limbs literally showed it, being especially massive compared to other living cats. Any escape for something wrapped around its limbs would be impossible. Most people think the Smilodon would chase down fleeing animals across ice or grassland, when in reality the Smilodon probably waited and ambushed its prey, where it would jump so close to you so quickly speed didn't matter and strength was the only thing that determined the survivor. And then there's the teeth. The saber-toothed tiger's most iconic feature are his large saber-toothed teeth sticking out of his face. These teeth could reach up to 7 inches in length and acted as a literal knife sticking straight out of the saber-tooth's face. When people imagine them, they think the teeth acted as his main killing device, with the predator basically just biting down on its victim and crushing it. That fact is wrong. The teeth were actually surprisingly fragile if they were used in the wrong way. The Smilodon's teeth acted more like blades than conical spikes like a tiger or other cats. If the Smilodon just tried to bite directly into the bones or other hard objects, the teeth would literally shatter, which makes them sound pretty useless to be honest, if they couldn't even be used for strikes. Why would evolution give the predator such a dramatic huge weapon on its mouth only for it to be breakable and weak? Well, the way the Smilodon actually used its teeth was deeply unsettling. Instead of just relying on its bite strength to end prey like a T-Rex, the Smilodon used it more as a precision device. At first, the Smilodon would use its powerful forelimbs to completely stop and immobilize the prey. Then once the animal was pinned down and unable to fight back, the Smilodon would carefully position its prey and then use the long teeth to slice into the soft tissue of the animal, making sure to aim its teeth in the more vulnerable areas where any cut could be deadly, like a disturbing surgeon. Most scientists agree it mainly targeted the throat or the underside of the body where major blood vessels are. The Smilodon always aimed to create deep incisions and sever arteries, making the prey bleed out. This is completely different from any modern big cat today. Lions and tigers usually just go for a suffocating bite on the throat or muzzle of its prey, squeezing down on whatever animal it had trapped until it can't breathe, which is scary in its own right, but not nearly as horrifying as the Smilodon. Imagine what it was like being a large herbivore in the Ice Age, like a bison or a young mammoth. You're just minding your own business, walking around woodland and pockets of grass, then bam, out of nowhere a massive weight slams into you, sending you into the ground. You look up only to be pinned down to the ground by a Smilodon with arms way stronger than yours. You just have to sit there and watch as the Smilodon opens his mouth and aims his teeth, slowly setting up then pushing his teeth into your vital arteries until you can no longer fight back and there's nothing you can do about it. You just became another victim of one of Earth's most deadly predators. What if we now go to modern day Los Angeles for a second, and more specifically the La Brea tar pits. The sticky asphalt of the tar pit has actually trapped animals for tens of thousands of years that wandered in and got stuck, with many of the fossils being predators that came in following already struggling prey just to get stuck themselves, which then added themselves to all the layers in the tar pit. This is where it gets scary again. Paleontologists over the years have pulled out thousands of Smilodon fossils from the pit, with the Smilodon fatalis being one of the most common large animals at La Brea, with more than 2,000 individual Smilodon fossils being found. As paleontologists look at these fossils, they found a common pattern. Many of the bones had signs of intense trauma with broken legs, damaged spines, or literal crushed skulls. The thing that would make you pause is that many of these injuries were the ones that healed. The bones showed that the Smilodon survived for many months or even years after suffering from these wounds. These wounds would have made traditional hunting nearly impossible, which doesn't make sense because the Smilodon would have needed to rest for the damaged bones and joints to fix themselves, on top of the fact that they were also carnivores, so they needed to continuously hunt to stay alive. This led some researchers to come up with the disturbing possibility. The Smilodon may have not been completely solitary animals like people believe. Smilodons may have been supported by other Smilodons in groups, meaning that they lived in groups. They probably also hunted in groups. In the prehistoric times, there's a chance you could literally run into a pack of Smilodons, each one with the ability and strength to ambush and hold down his prey, and the teeth to have a precision bite that could easily end it. For all we know, the Smilodon could have circled animals, with some of the Smilodons holding down the prey, while the other ones went in for a final strike with their sharp teeth. The Smilodon was also not limited to a small area. While it's very popular in California, and more specifically in Los Angeles, with LA designating specifically the Smilodon fatalis as the state fossil in 1974, the Smilodon has literally been seen all over the country, from places like Texas and California, all the way to Alberta, Canada, and down in South America, with its even bigger cousin called Smilodon populaire being found in the open grasslands of South America, hunting mainly giant sloths in Menrochina. For a very long time, the Smilodon was a very successful apex predator that dominated during its time period. The Smilodon lived from about 400,000 years ago until roughly 11,000 years ago, overlapping with some of the early humans in the Americas. It was one of the largest and most terrifying predators in a specific ecosystem, but then it went extinct. Around the end of the final ice age, many of the large animals that the Smilodon specifically hunted disappeared, with mammoths, giant ground sloths, and large camels dwindling in numbers. As the climate changed and reached its habitats and early humans began spreading, hunting the same prey became impossible. Since the Smilodon specialized in taking down big, heavy animals in close quarters, when all those animals started to vanish, the Smilodon was forced to die off too. It was just too specialized for its time period and could not switch to smaller animals, leaving it to slowly whittle away and starve. The Smilodon was also just a completely different animal than anything that exists today. While many people try to categorize it with cats like today's tigers or lions, it doesn't fit comfortably with any of those creatures. It's a disservice to the saber-toothed tiger to simply say it's a tiger with fangs. It was an animal that strictly evolved to be the apex predator of its own environment, and through evolution, it was designed to survive in the Ice Age, using strength to hold down the bigger animals of the time, and then using its fangs to precisely cut into the most vulnerable parts of its prey. Movies like the Ice Age soften its image and turn it into a grumpy, slightly evil but lovable side character. They humanize it so it seems like some kind of moody cat with bigger than normal teeth, while in reality the Smilodon had none of these qualities. Instead, it would have been a dark shadow waiting behind a bush or behind a tree, watching and waiting for its next victim before jumping out of the bush. It was an animal that could take down prey much bigger than itself with just its muscles. I'm honestly surprised how humans could even compete with it at the time. It goes to show how powerful humans really are. There was a point when our ancestors may have run into a single Smilodon, or even worse, a pack of them, and had to fight them to survive. The real saber-toothed tiger wasn't just a fast tiger or lion with fangs. It was evolution's literal perfect killer, with every part of it adapted for the Ice Age's harsh conditions. It was an animal perfected for a specific situation and then completely erased by time, which is honestly probably a good thing, because I don't think bear spray would work on this thing if it still existed and you ran into one while you were camping. If you made this long, I really appreciate you listening. I really enjoyed researching this animal and learning a bunch of new facts. Leave a comment if you were scared or you learned something new, and subscribe and hype the video if you're on mobile. I'll see you guys all in the next video coming soon. Bye.